As a Canadian, I'd like to say to John Oliver that you are an absolute piece of trash. John Oliver made a video back in 2015, one day before the Canadian election, where Justin Trudeau beat Stephen Harper. I'll get to that video in a second. And in that video, John Oliver urged Canadians not to vote for Stephen Harper. Well, he got his wish. Canadians did not vote for Stephen Harper. They voted for Justin Trudeau, who's been in office ever since. And let's take a look at how Canada is doing in 2024 right now.
Well, some new data compiled by Food Banks Canada now finds that almost 25% of Canadians are living in poverty.
So 25% of the population of a supposedly wealthy country, Canada, living in poverty. Totally unacceptable. Now we're going to go to the John Oliver video, because him and all his infinite wisdom, a guy doesn't even live in Canada. And by the way, the claims he's making in this video are very direct, saying right to Canadians, don't vote for Stephen Harper. It's not just some guy giving a political take. He's explicitly saying this. I'm going to start this actually at the end of the video to show you him outright telling Canadians what to do and who to vote for. Insanity. And then we're going to go afterwards to the reasons that he gives and compare those to 25% of people in poverty, because I think anyone can see this if you're being honest and say, it's worse now than in 2015.
Specifically, Section 331 of the Canada Elections Act, which states, no person who does not reside in Canada shall induce electors to vote or refrain from voting for a particular candidate. And apparently, anyone found guilty of doing that could be fined up to $5,000. Stephen Harper doesn't care about Muslim people.
Totally fair.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I think he made that pretty clear.
I think it was painful. So please, do not vote for Stephen Harper.
Yeah, don't do it.
Shall we?
Don't. Yeah,
Shall we?
Yeah, look at this.
Let's. Here's your 5,000, Canada.
Yeah, look at this.
Here's your
So again, I'll say, John Oliver, you're an absolute piece of trash. To get on your show, you don't even live in Canada. You're some dude with a British accent who lives in America and is going to tell to your, at the time, massive show, everyone to explicitly not vote for Stephen Harper, even though you knew you're breaking a Canadian law and you're making a joke about it, throwing around that money like that. Now, to what degree did this actually sway the election in Canada? I mean, looking at it in 2024, when no one cares what celebrities say, you could say not at all. This was before the Trump, even like before the Brexit, but before the Trump craziness. People at this moment in history, 2015, kind of listened to celebrities, at least a lot of people on the liberal side of the aisle, which is what John Oliver clearly is pandering to here. This video alone got 14 million views on his personal YouTube channel. And I live in Canada. I remember this got shared a ton from what I saw just on people's Facebook pages and stuff. And again, this was one day before the election, about as blatant of election interference as you can do. And again, he's proud of it. So to what degree did it sway it? I'm pretty confident saying it wouldn't just be one, like I bet you he swayed a few people. This video, again, 14 million just on YouTube. I did see this video going around a lot. So what has happened in Canada since John Oliver got his way and Stephen Harper was voted out? Rent prices have doubled. Housing prices have doubled. People in Canada are moving across provinces, like Ontario to Alberta is a common move, British Columbia to Alberta, thousands of kilometers away from where they grew up, because homes in Ontario and British Columbia on average are around $1 million now. Things in Canada have gotten significantly worse, basically any way you measure it, unless you want to talk about legal weed, which fine, that's fine. But economically, the things that actually really matter to Canadians, everything's gotten worse. Healthcare system's gotten worse. But primarily, the economics of Canada have gone down the tubes. And people's lives are being ruined. Like many people in Canada, if you don't have rich parents, you'll never own a home unless things drastically change. That was not true 9 years ago. Houses were still relatively affordable. Vancouver and Toronto were a little bit of bubbles, but you could just like leave Vancouver, downtown Vancouver, go a little bit outside. Same with Toronto, go a little bit outside Toronto and have a chance. Now you have to move thousands of kilometers away, perhaps to a city where you're not even going to have a job, totally restart your life. So now let's take a look at some of the major problems in Canada in 2015 and why John Oliver had to go on his show, tell 14 million people, plus all the people that saw this on shares, how bad Canada was doing and why Stephen Harper, at all costs apparently, needed to be voted out.
Canada, the country you think about so little, that's it, end of sentence.
Haha, real funny. Now I'm going to literally tell you how to vote.
Canada is having a major election soon. And by soon, I mean tomorrow. Polls show that Justin is currently leading incumbent Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Where there is banality, there is evil. For instance, Harper's government has passed numerous laws weakening Canada's environmental protections.
Another rich guy trying to tell people that the environment should be a primary concern to them. This is the first thing that John Oliver brought up. 1 in 10 people in Toronto, our biggest city, rely on food banks. The amount of Canadians using food banks across the country is around 2 million people, and that number keeps going up. That's the highest number since they started recording data. But let's tell a bunch of Canadians, again, a quarter of Canadians in poverty, that the environment, care about the environment. You can care about the environment when your basic needs are met.
Tobacco is a product that does a lot of damage. Marijuana is infinitely worse.
Are you high?
I think this is actually fine that marijuana is legal now. It was kind of funny when it first was legalized. There was those dispensaries, I believe they're called, there was pretty much 1 or 2 of those in every street. I think it's a little bit more of a normal thing now. I don't use marijuana, but I think it's fine to be legal as opposed to being in the underground market. However, I bet you most people would rather marijuana still be illegal and they could afford to live. Again, the affordability crisis in Canada, probably to Americans, is still pretty unknown. It is ridiculous here. The prices of housing here are much more expensive, at least 25% more than in America, or even more. The homes here are out of control. Like if you look at the border, for example, in Niagara Falls, Canada versus Niagara Falls, America, the difference in prices is mind-blowing. How much more expensive things are in Canada. The same is true around the Vancouver, British Columbia area. If you just go a little bit lower into America, it's crazy.
But Harper's ugliest tendency is perhaps his pandering to Islamophobes. Earlier this year, his government passed a law called the Zero Tolerance for Barbaric Cultural Practices Act, stiffening penalties for things like honour killing and polygamy, despite the fact both those things were already illegal in Canada. And then a few weeks ago, they suggested a barbaric cultural practices hotline, despite the fact 911 continues to exist in Canada.
So it seems to be John Oliver's main criticism of Stephen Harper is he's claiming that he's Islamophobic and has these Islamophobic tendencies. And like at the end there, he said Stephen Harper doesn't care about Muslim people. This was big in the news, especially in America at around this time. So John Oliver's point here, specifically what he just said, like about how Stephen Harper brought up the barbaric cultural practices, I think history is actually on John Oliver's side here, that like that has not been an issue in Canada to a large extent since that Stephen Harper was talking about that back in 2015. Now, was it worth it to focus so much on that I would say error that Stephen Harper made in the campaign? Because the Canadian system, as I'll show here, sorts some of this stuff out.
And this is on top of the fact that they once banned women from wearing the niqab while taking the oath of citizenship.
Why it's so important to keep your veil on while taking the oath?
Because the Canadian, I actually chose this country for the reason is it provides me with the freedom of my to practice on my religion as well.
And Canada's federal courts actually agreed with her because she sued Harper's government and won.
So as I said, the Canadian system dealt with this one. So first of all, John Oliver, you're now complaining about something that's already been solved. So shut up. Don't tell Canadians what to do. You're just admitting that the Canadian system already gave you what you wanted. And she didn't have to do that. By the way, on this one, I mean, this virtue signaling clown John Oliver, just for the ratings, just to keep his name alive. By the way, when this video came out, John Oliver was a massive celebrity in the United States. Like, this Last Week Tonight show was huge. It's since died off a bit. I think it's still probably pretty successful, but this was a massive show in politics around 2015 to 2017. But on this one, the Stephen Harper's thinking, I'm assuming what Stephen Harper would have argued is, we don't know who you are if you don't show us your face. This is like the 2015 version of, we're so woke that we can't even ask questions. That's just the logic of it. I mean, everyone would know that. It's just to show your face. It's not to like be oppressive or anything. It's just, hey, are you who you say you are? But even with that said, I mean, the Canadian court ruled that she can do it, so I guess she can. And I don't know why John Oliver even wanted to bring that up. So aside from a few other clips of John Oliver just kind of calling Stephen Harper cringe for liking movies and just for his style kind of being like a dork, basically, I'll show his last criticism here.
They've scaled back healthcare for some refugees, which a federal court called cruel and unusual.
So all of John Oliver's analysis, there's no analysis done in this entire segment. But he's still so confident to tell Canadians not to vote for Stephen Harper. He got 14 million views. This video goes viral all over Canada. Again, this John Oliver is a scumbag for this video, in my opinion. And by the way, he reposted this, at least his account did, 3 weeks ago, back on like their Last Week Tonight page. So I don't know if that was him doing it or his team, but feels obviously no regret from this absolute hack job of video. And just the like insane ego to tell an entire country that you don't even live in. Like you're some guy from, I think, Britain, you have some British accent, living in America, and you're going to tell an entire country on your massive YouTube show or massive show on HBO who not to vote for. This guy is actually a piece of garbage. What a scumbag of a person. Because at no point during John Oliver's analysis, this video that he made back in 2015, there's no talk about what's the day-to-day life of an average Canadian. Sure, you can get Mike Myers on like he did at the end, and John Oliver, two rich people, look at a few laws in Canada and decide either A, they don't like them, or B, which I think B could potentially be the reason that they actually did this, because you're this left-wing virtue signaling clown show that wants your show to pick up in ratings. So you see an opportunity. Oh, the election's tomorrow. I'm all of a sudden going to have this incredible opinion about what Canada should do, and I'll say all the woke notes so all my friends like me, and my left-wing audience thinks I'm great and thinks I'm like the savior of Canada. And I'm not going to do an actual analysis of the day-to-day life, because look at this chart. GDP per capita, Canada as a percentage of USA. And this is going to illustrate that since 2015, since Trudeau has won, and Trudeau's been in power since then for 9 years, Canada's economy is lagging behind a ton of other countries. It's, in a real GDP basis, has only grown a little bit, and it certainly hasn't grown as much as the housing prices have ballooned up. So looking at this chart, you'll notice from 2016 to 2015, that is when Stephen Harper was in office, pretty much a consistent basis of our economy versus the American economy. We basically held steady at around 80% of the American economy, which America's the richest, at least major country in a absolute basis. It is by far the richest country on earth. And GDP per capita, if you can stay 80% of America, that's pretty good. Earlier, like back in the 70s or whatever, we were even closer, but America still has a lot of innovation. America loves to complain, but at least from a growth perspective, America is still growing at a good rate. And from 2016 to 2015, we were pretty constant with that, around 80%. And look at since then, it's just been a straight down trend. And trust me, as a Canadian, a ton of Canadians are experiencing the real world effects of this. The wages are not growing in many industries. And the problem, too, that makes it even worse for Canada is Canada's economy is relatively flat. It's only growing a little bit. It's certainly not growing as fast as it needs to. And at the same time, grocery prices are going up. The big one, though, is housing prices have gone completely out of control since 2015. Rent prices, again, across the country have doubled. Home prices have doubled. And again, that clip at the beginning, 25%, a quarter of Canadians now living in poverty. So to John Oliver, are you going to make a video in our next election, assuming that none of this data radically changes? That's next year in 2015. Are you going to make another Canada vote video? Hey, we need to get all these people out of poverty. We need to reduce the housing crisis. We need to get the Canadian economy running again. Are you going to make a video on that? Because I doubt it, because there's probably nothing woke or nothing politically correct or virtue signaling that you can grab onto. It's actually going to be a real analysis. You're going to have to do actual homework. Now you could say, and I would agree with this, I'll say this, Canada has had an election in 2019 and 2021, so we have had chances to basically vote in somebody else. But still, for John Oliver in 2015, when Canada was a country where the middle class was doing pretty good, the average worker could still afford a home and a life, for him to come in and just this savior from the States, I'm going to help all you guys and tell you not to vote in the person who's doing a pretty good job running your country. I'm going to pick a few things that I don't think are woke enough and then tell you to not vote for him. I mean, absolute coward move by John Oliver. But the real reason I bet John Oliver won't comment or won't do a video like this for the 2025 election, even though he could look up and say, wow, Canada is actually doing worse, if he is like smart enough to realize that the middle class needs to exist, unless he's such an elitist piece of garbage that he thinks, oh, it's actually better now because they have a carbon tax and yeah, the middle class, they can't afford to live, but I'm happy with that. If he wants to do another one of these videos, he probably won't, because he'll see, oh, the conservative person looks like they're going to win, and like, yeah, like I think conservatives are cringe and blah. I'm John Oliver. I'm smarter than everybody. So with that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. You suck, John Oliver. To everybody else, have a good day.